Chronic pain that no one can see can make you feel isolated. But what if I told you that millions are walking the same invisible path? In today's Unscripted, we're breaking through that isolation together. Let's dive in. Welcome to Total Healing's Unscripted Fridays, your home for raw stories, deep healing, and real transformation. This particular episode is near and dear to me because I suffer from chronic pain and I have for over 20 years now, basically my whole adult life. And it's been a very long road medically. Even just trying to find a diagnosis, it took years and years for certain things to be diagnosed. I was already about 10 years into my long chronic pain journey when I finally was diagnosed with something called fibromyalgia. And we're going to talk more about that shortly. But before we do, I just want to say that I have, on top of fibromyalgia, I have other conditions, multiple medical conditions that really affect how they affect my ability to work. So, I used to be a thriving marketing professional, and now I can barely remember words half the time because I get brain fog and so many other symptoms and my medications make it difficult for me to remember things. So there's side effects from all the meds that I take as well. So it just piles on top of everything, and at the end of the day, it's just sheer exhaustion. I was coming home and just completely and totally wiped out, and I'd be falling asleep at, like, 7, 8 o'clock at night and just crash because my body was just so overwhelmed. My immune system, my neurological system it was all overtaxed at the time. Still is, but I mean, I still have all of these medical conditions. In fact, I have more now, but, at the time of when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I was still working, full-time job, marketing professional, but I felt completely alone in what I was experiencing and very isolating. Any kind of chronic illness, anyone going through that will find that it is extremely isolating, can be depressing, it can cause anxiety, depression, it can cause other, emotional states that are not very pleasant. Let's put it that way. Um, so basically, my life has been upended. I can't enjoy the things that I used to enjoy, like I used to. I can't participate in the activities. I get winded very easily. Just, life is different. Life is very different now than it was in my 20s. I mean, granted, that usually happens, but just the way that my body is and what I can um, put up with in a day, what I can deal with in a day. Um, so I only tell you this because of the fact that it is very isolating and not having someone else to talk to or to have that knows exactly what you're going through is really difficult. And no one else in my family had this. None of my friends had this. So I was experiencing this alone. So today, in this episode of Unscripted, we are going to, in the next segment, that's going to take up the majority of this episode, we're going to read through some other women's experiences of fibromyalgia. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more and what it is and some of the symptoms and things like that. But I really want to talk about, I'm going to read a book that gives uh, in it gives a voice to other women who are experiencing fibromyalgia and other chronic illnesses. So that is really important to me to know, or it was really helpful for me to know that I wasn't alone. So Up next, in the next segment, we will be reading actually two books, but the first book is going to be listening to voices from other women who are experiencing similar chronic health issues. So stay tuned. Welcome to Words of Wisdom, where we go through a book or passages from a book or an article, a motivational phrase or something that, I find helpful or have found helpful through my own self-development journey. And part of that journey has been my medical history, which I shared a little bit about earlier. So, when I was first learning that I had fibromyalgia, this was back in 2018 because I looked and that's when I got this book. Um, I bought this book on Amazon and really wanted to learn more about the disease itself, fibromyalgia. So, Barbara Keady is a registered nurse, and she herself had these symptoms of fibromyalgia, and through her wanting to learn more about it, she wrote a book and basically compiled experiences and stories from 20 other women who, all different ages, races, everything, who also have um, fibromyalgia and different life experiences and what they're going through. So it's a very great book to reference for knowing um, what other people are going through. So I'm going to read from chapter 1, just a little bit about pain here. So pain, whether let me move the mic a little closer there so you can have a clearer audio. Pain, whether acute or chronic, is not well understood. It is highly subjective. One may live with chronic pain for many years and continue to function adequately in daily activities, which I did until I couldn't anymore, while another may be completely immobilized by it. For some, there is little relief. For others, there may be some degree of relief from an over the counter pain medication, yet for others, only heavy narcotics can allow them to continue with their normal activities. Some of the literature suggests that anxiety is a precursor to pain. I can attest to that being the case in my situation. I do not believe, however, that anxiety must always precede fibromyalgia pain. There could be multiple factors which affect the nervous system and subsequently cause pain. For example, happy excitement could cause the arousal of an overstimulated nervous system. Still, the fibromyalgia syndrome itself like fibromyalgia syndrome itself, pain is indeed a complicated phenomenon. Neither pain nor fibromyalgia are understood very well from a scientific background. Pain is subjective, and everyone handles it differently. Things work different for different people. What else? Yeah, so it's not a one size fits all for anybody, and that's part of the problem of diagnosing this incredibly complex disease. So, general features of fibromyalgia. Generally, the most troublesome symptom for people with fibromyalgia is widespread pain, usually described as sore all over. This complaint most often results in a referral to a rheumatologist, which you must then see for the rest of your life, I can tell you that. Usually, pain and stiffness present upon awakening, gradually improve into the early afternoon. Sims reporting on the laboratory studies of the muscles in people with fibromyalgia describes them as moth-eaten. So the muscles of people with fibromyalgia have been described as moth-eaten and ragged red muscle fibers. So basically, people with fibromyalgia have weakened muscle fibers, apparently. The latter description evokes images I personally can relate to, particularly as I often imagine the pain as constant fire in my muscles, a demon that never leaves me. These are her words, not mine. But I can attest to, yeah, I feel like that sometimes too. Other times, there are sharp, shock like pains that cause me to gasp out loud, which is different from the fire imagery. So, basically, pain all over, pain everywhere, different kinds of pain, shooting pain, burning pain, all sorts of different kinds of pain. Um, treatment for pain. Oh, I wasn't going to read that part. Sorry. All right, so that's basically what I had for you for pain was how we feel. Sometimes we're on fire, sometimes burning, shooting pains, all different experiences. And you know what? You can wake up one day and have one set of symptoms, and tomorrow your symptoms might be different. You might get one new one. It's never fun. So, but it's a ride. It's definitely a ride, whether it's fun or not. That's up to you. All right. So let us read these. We're on, I believe this is, yeah, chapter 2, Meet the Women. So we're going to read some paragraphs about some different women. Jean. At the time of the original interview, Jean was 44 years old. She is a retired school teacher who is white and of mainly Scottish background. She has been told that multiple sclerosis, which she has had since she was 29, ouch, that's young, that's really young, is more common among people whose ancestors come from Scotland. I did not know that. So MS is more common in Scotland. She retired at age 50 because of MS. At around the age of 41, she was told by her neurologist that she had fibromyalgia. Because of the similarities of the two conditions, she is never quite sure if the symptoms she experiences are MS or fibromyalgia, but her physician told her that much of the pain and discomfort she experienced was, in fact, caused by fibromyalgia. So, fibromyalgia is just there. Oh, I thought I was frozen. Sorry. So fibromyalgia is just there, causing pain in the background while you're just trying to live your day, and it's a constant reminder that it's there because it's always there. It never goes away. I was gonna say something else. Oh, it's common. It's very common that you would have people with with fibromyalgia have multiple conditions. So for me, it started with fibromyalgia, and then it evolved to now I also have this other autoimmune disease, and now I also might have this other thing that's wrong with my autonomic system. So it's like one thing goes bad and your whole system can be off kilter somehow. So for um for this, just know that sometimes you might have fibromyalgia pain, you might have MS pain, whatever your other autoimmune disease or whatever you have. There's always comorbidities, as they call them. You usually have more than one thing wrong with you, so it's very hard to differentiate what is what. Doctors have a very hard time diagnosing you, and in my case, my rheumatologist, I'll tell you this, my former rheumatologist, he's not my rheumatologist anymore, he never wanted to hear that um, I had these other symptoms and I was complaining about these other symptoms, and he just kept brushing it off to fibromyalgia. And I just knew that it wasn't just fibromyalgia. So I had to advocate for myself and finally say, you know what? I really think that this is ankylosing spondylitis is the like main name of what it is, and then like it's a subcategory that I have called non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, which is an autoimmune disease which causes pain and sometimes deformation of your bones in your hips, your back, your neck, your spine. So it's whatever. It's hard to differentiate what is fibromyalgia pain and what is from this other thing. So it's just and I'm just now thinking that I have this other thing going on with me that I am seeing a doctor about now too. So when you are feeling one way and your symptoms fit something, okay, fine. Now I have the diagnosis where I feel like I have fibromyalgia. Okay, good. But now I feel like there's something else. You have to advocate for yourself and you have to be um do your own research and determine for yourself what your symptoms could or could not be because honestly, my previous doctor was not listening to me, didn't really have uh didn't even want to like change protocol of what we were already doing. Didn't even want to like add, do a test or anything to help in the situation where I was complaining about whatever it was I was complaining about. And so eventually I had to ask him and be like, listen, I think I have this. Can you do the test that we need to do the blood test? And he did. And sure enough, I had it or I was positive for it, which it's not like I always wonder how much I should share and how much I shouldn't because I mean, maybe it might help someone in the long run. There's this thing called the RHF factor, I think it is. And some people who have people who are positive with that factor in their blood often can develop ankylosing spondylitis or some subcategory of it. So that's what I had him test for. It wasn't necessarily a diagnosis, but it definitely confirmed my suspicions that it wasn't just fibromyalgia that I was feeling. So I tell you that all this to say keep up with your doctor, stay on top of them if you're not getting what you need from them, if you have complex illnesses like this as well. All right, let's continue on with Jean. I didn't mean to get on such a long rant, but it's important to know that these other things exist with other comorbidities and they're difficult, very difficult sometimes to diagnose and to even get your doctor to understand what you're going through. All right, so Jean lives in a small town with her spouse, also a retired school teacher, and has two married sons and several grandchildren. She defines her mother as a highly sensitive person who sacrifices herself for others, and she believes she has acquired the same characteristic. Remind me, or I will remind myself, one day we will do an episode on highly sensitive persons. That is an actual term. Um, uh, I believe it's a psychology term where people similar I diagnose myself as a highly sensitive person. There's actually a really good documentary. I think it's on Amazon Prime. I'm not really sure, but there's a good documentary on uh, highly sensitive persons, which Alanis Morissette, who she's like a queen from my 90s growing up. She's considers herself a highly sensitive person, and she talks about her struggles growing up and not being understood. And um, there's it's a whole thing, and it is a scientific thing where every species has some that have developed into this highly sensitive species, which can put your immune system, your nervous system, all your systems on overdrive. So, and basically you're in like hypervigilance all the time. So if she's saying that she thinks that her mother is a highly sensitive person, that tracks because I would consider myself an HSP as well, highly sensitive person. Western trained medical physicians, oh, wait, sorry. She has contact with the formal healthcare system through Western trained medical physicians. She also works with complementary therapists. She describes herself as extremely sensitive to people's needs and emotions. This is me also. And she is easily emotionally hurt by others, readily becomes anxious, and cannot tolerate confrontation or conflict. She anticipates with others, I'm sorry, she anticipates what others are thinking and feels their energy. This all is part of being a highly sensitive person. Formerly, she had high levels of energy, but now she does not have the same mobility, is mostly wheelchair bound, and has found that her lifestyle has changed dramatically as a result. She worked hard and was conscientious about her work with the children she taught. Each project she completed was followed by a bigger and more laborious, intensive one. Jean described herself as somewhat of a perfectionist, but noted that she attended to the needs of others before her own, particularly those of the children that she taught. That also tracks. So, being a perfectionist, that was me. Once I started getting all these health conditions piling on, I can no longer care about being perfect. And I'm a sloppy mess now all the time because of my illness. And I don't care. I am not apologetic for it. It is who I am now. I'm not I'm not a perfectionist anymore, and I'm glad to have gotten rid of that nasty habit. Um, while she could move about somewhat with two canes, she uses either a scooter or wheelchair outside the home. A lot of that non-mobility is probably from MS, not fibromyalgia. She needs a great deal of contact with the outside world and often pushes herself to go out. This is often difficult as she is highly sensitive to the impact she might be having on others, particularly as they see her in a wheelchair, and she is also highly tuned to what others may be thinking, probably thinking about her. She goes to great lengths not to offend others. Jean is socially active and very religious. She finds prayer to be the most helpful to her during stressful times. She takes numerous vitamins and supplements. Been there, done that, still doing it. Has visited a chiropractor. Yep. Has occasional massages. Used to, yeah. Has had cleansing of on the advice of an herbalist. I've not had an herbalist, but I've done tons of cleanses and has had electrotherapy. I have not had that, which she found somewhat temporarily helpful for the pain. Her most troublesome symptoms are sleeping disorders, pain, fatigue, and depression, which also affect her walking. She takes medication for depression, occasionally Elavil for sleep, and other MS medication. All right, our next woman that we're going to meet officially is Leanne. Leanne is a black woman, and she's one of the youngest of the group that of the 20 women that Barbara Keedy interviewed here. So um, she says Leanne is 37 at the time of her first interview. So you're going to notice that a lot of these women in here in this book are around their 40s, learning that they have fibromyalgia. So that's a common age where people, but she's a little bit younger. Leanne is the youngest of the group. So she was 37. She was working full time as a counselor for Black students. Her job required intense compassion for students combating racism and struggling to improve the plight of Black students in a racist society. Leanne's work required her to take on racist policies, subtle or overt, within the workplace. Because of her sensitive nature, she oftentimes found herself embroiled in situations that were unhealthy for her emotionally. I can tell you, just even getting into a verbal spat with someone on social media can drain you emotionally and then physically. Getting emotionally invested in something and having having that drain you emotionally can physically make you feel drained as well. It's very easy for that to happen. So her office had been remade into a scent-free environment, and by her own admission, it was oftentimes difficult to find physical places where her symptoms were not intensified. She believes that she had environmental illness long before she was diagnosed. So another comorbidity at the same time of having fibromyalgia. She believes that she had environmental illness long before and knows that it is related to fibromyalgia. So she might have had the fibromyalgia before and then felt like this environmental illness came on because her body was already weakened by the fibromyalgia. She believes she had fibromyalgia even as a child living in a predominantly white community with few black people. She has many health problems which were misdiagnosed in the past. In particular, she has a serious sleeping disorder, which is very common for people with fibromyalgia, depression, fatigue, and pain. Although she does not specifically identify herself as psychologically sensitive, that highly sensitive person, she doesn't consider herself an HSP. She says she is always able to pick up on people's moods and differentiate between types of people whom she calls nice or genuine or nasty. That's a trait of a highly sensitive person. She, too, is greatly in tune with the energy in the room, also characteristic of a highly sensitive person. She also says that she has deja vu often. Leanne believes that we are predisposed to fibromyalgia, or perhaps it's even hereditary. Leanne had a job that was high stress and high profile. She lives in a city with her spouse and has not had any children. She often found it difficult to take what she called medical holidays, but immediately after our first interview, she ended up on long term disability. She says that her best results for symptom relief come from the complementary medicines, things like massages, um, aromatherapy, whatever, other things that calm you and um, relieve your nerves. She says that the best have been the complementary medicines. While she would like to work part time, she does not believe she could afford to with the price of medications. Yeah, you can't even if you did. It's like a double-edged sword. It's like you are in such a condition where you can't work, but you're forced to work because if you don't work, then you can't get your medical treatment and your medications and you can't, get healthy. It makes no sense. There's got to be a better way. It's a bad system as is. So she wants to work part-time, but she can't afford it. She can't afford the medications and is certain about her professional future. She is currently very ill, unable to work, and at times housebound. This is very unsettling for a once high energy person. Complicating her alienation while housebound are bouts of acute depression and a myriad of other disabling symptoms. So that's Leanne. Leanne's not in great shape there. Um, and unfortunately, her story's not unique. I'm sure there's others out there that are experiencing something similar to her. And I want to read a bunch of these because I think we're not going to read all of them, but we're going to read a variety of them because I think it's really important to see that everybody struggles in a different way. Nobody experiences fibromyalgia the exact same. And and you'll also see why, once I start reading more, you'll see why it's so difficult to diagnose, especially with all the comorbidities and whatnot. Up next is Anna. At 48, Anna found that she could no longer work full time as a dental assistant. Her symptoms began in the winter of 1994 following a car accident. So, oftentimes, an illness or an accident, something traumatic to the body can set this off. Sometimes it just comes out of nowhere, but sometimes something can set it off. But she was only officially diagnosed with fibromyalgia in 1999. She is now working part-time as a receptionist and is a white woman who lives with her spouse and two teenagers in a city. She keeps herself busy at home doing craft work because she enjoys it and because it helps to keep her fingers mobile as she experiences hand and joint pain. Anna describes herself as an outgoing person who loves helping people. She said that she used to be a bubbly type person who has gone quieter as the result of fibromyalgia. It's true that when you feel like crap, you find it a little more difficult to be in a better mood and to be chipper and cheery. Um, she was once a hard driving working person who now feels burnt out. She used to entertain regularly, but rarely does so now because it's hard work. Entertaining people, cleaning the house is difficult. Just doing those kinds of things is just stressful on the body. Of the complementary therapies, she has tried electromagnetic therapy by wearing small discs on her body, and she takes vitamins and has had massages. But she is not convinced any of these modalities are effective in the long term. She is acutely aware of the needs of other people, and that is why she chose a profession whereby she could help others. She has become very sensitive to complaining about her distress with fibromyalgia. She does not like to discuss her symptoms with her immediate family because she believes it upsets them. That causes more isolation, I'm sure, by not having someone that you can discuss it with. And she's unwilling to bore them with the talk of the pain that she's experiencing. Again, very isolating. If you are experiencing this thing that you can't even talk about or nobody around you understands, it's very isolating. Upsetting and sensing discomfort in others with her complaints was stressful for her. That was Anna. Up next is Becky. A 43-year-old white woman was married at the time of the interview but subsequently divorced from her spouse. She had so some more stress going on in her life when she's also dealing with medical issues. I was also dealing with a divorce and things when I was having medical stuff going on before I even had the fibromyalgia diagnosis. She has two teenagers who then lived with her alone in a city. She is a nurse who is now back at work after taking sick leave. She believes that she developed fibromyalgia after a hysterectomy several years ago. Something stressful on the body was too taxing for her, perhaps, and then fibromyalgia just decides, hey, I'm here. I'm here, and you got to deal with it now. During her childhood, her mother would tell her that she was a hothouse plant because she always needed tender care and was never able to push herself to extreme limits. She has always been labeled as being too sensitive or hypersensitive, another common trait of highly sensitive people. See the themes that are showing up here? She has always tried to meet the expectations at home, running the house and being there for the children and doing my work and being able, this was a quote, doing my work and being able to being something for everybody. She describes her father as sensitive to woes and is a very tender heart type of man who died of a massive heart attack at age 60. His death was traumatic for her as she lost the one person who could relate to her emotional sensitivities and vulnerabilities. Becky believes that there is a mind body connection with fibromyalgia. This is another common theme because the stress, the trying to keep up, trying to be the housewife, the mother, the female professional, all of the things that society says you have to be. Trying to do that is very stressful, and that's what these women have been trying to do and just live, and it's too taxing on them. Testing. Oh, okay. Just making sure that my mic didn't go out because it's gone out now and I've had to record this one a couple times. All right. So she She thinks that people with fibromyalgia are thinkers, feelers, sometimes of a more quiet personality. They're more in tune with themselves. She believes that fibromyalgia burns out the body quickly. She is agitated by too much stimuli and hates too much pressure. She has environmental sensitivities now that she did not have before. She says that everything in my body is hypersensitive now. Like it's like your system goes into overdrive and it doesn't shut itself off. While Becky does not engage in any kind of complementary therapy with professionals, she does hand exercises and massages her own neck and hands. In addition, she uses magnetic therapy and has had good success with pain control. She sleeps under a far infrared quilt. I don't know what that is. On a magnetic mattress and pillow. Wow, so she changed, it's lifestyle changing, these things. You really do have to change your whole lifestyle sometimes. She also uses magnetic insoles, necklaces, bracelets, and earrings, all of which help her tremendously. She finds peace through meditation and reading the Bible. And she tries to avoid too much stimulation, although this is very difficult sometimes in her workplace. So that is Becky. Becky was a nurse, so yeah, I would imagine it's really difficult not to be overstimulated at work sometimes. Up next, we have Sally. Sally is a 44-year-old white woman, 4-year-old white woman, lives in a city and has a part-time nursing job. A lot of these people, nursing, teacher, a lot of these people, counselor, I've always worked in nonprofit, like people that develop these or that develop fibromyalgia all have this common theme that they've been in a position or have careers where they are helping people more than themselves. In marketing, it's like you're doing what everybody else wants, and everybody's trying to get your help on one thing or another, at least where I was working, and I was being pulled in a million directions. And I really do think that my last jobs was I'm not gonna say that it caused my fibromyalgia and all the stuff, but it definitely didn't help. I want to say it exacerbated it greatly and probably made, uh, my decline even faster by being under so much stress. My health declined even faster by being under all that stress. The job that I was working was a high stressful job, a high-paced, high stress, everybody always wanting something from you every second of the day, and it was very stressful. Anyways, let's move on. All right, so the next person we're going to read is Sally. Sally is a 44-year-old white woman, lives in a city, and has a part-time nursing job. She lives with her spouse and does not have children. Following the stress of her father's death, a viral infection, poor working conditions, and a car accident, she was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. That's a lot of stressors on your body at once. Probably not all at the same time, but compiled. Her father died, she had a viral infection, she had some bad working conditions, and a car accident all on top of it. That's bad luck. Um, this is a quote from Sally. She says, I'm a worrier. I worry for everybody, not just myself. And a lot of times I don't worry about myself the way I should. I'm too busy worrying about other people. I don't like to do things wrong. And that was me for the longest time. I was always thinking, I'm going to do things wrong. I was always stressed about, I'm going to screw up and things of that nature. And it didn't help me. That definitely added to my stress when I was working there. Um, Sally feels she is overly sensitive. Another common theme. Everybody's helping other people more than themselves. They neglect themselves somewhat to help others, and they're all overly sensitive. So Sally feels she is overly sensitive to not doing the right thing for others. Not only does she describe herself as highly sensitive, but she believes she is psychic. Seems like that's another theme, huh? Psychic, deja vu. I don't know. I feel like I'm empathic. By psychic, she means she gets feelings that she cannot describe and seems to know when things aren't right. That's intuition, my darling, and we all have it. We're all psychic in that regard. But she's just more in tune with it. She says that as a child, even though I was asleep, I was always aware of what was going on around me. I suppose I do the same now. That's hypervigilance, always knowing what's going on around you at all times. You're like overly sensitive to noises and sounds and smells and everything. More succinctly, she was always in a state of emotional hyperarousal. She says she is definitely a sensitive person who always wants to push herself further for others. She recognizes that she reacts strongly to stimuli, whether in response to the emotions of others or within her own body, in the form of chemical and food sensitivities, especially dairy products. She also suffers from asthma. While she believes there are remissions for fibromyalgia, she thinks that certain personality types are prone to it. She says she takes care of the needs of others before herself. For her own benefit, she practices imagery and takes various vitamins. She suffers from pain, fatigue, and sleep disturbances. So basically, pain, fatigue, sleep disturbances are the main three um, factors here, right? But then you could be a highly sensitive person, hypervigilant. You could have sensitivities to food, your environment, allergies, asthma is an allergen, all sorts of things, all are related to the body. It's all interconnected. All right, let's read Candace next. Candace is a white 47-year-old woman in a flight and is a flight attendant who lives in a small village with her spouse. She has never had children. That's another theme that seems to be coming up. Women who don't have kids. There's so far we only heard of one that had children. She was diagnosed with fibromyalgia years ago after a vicious viral infection that left her paralyzed from the neck down for a few hours. That sounds awful. She describes fibromyalgia as stress related and doing too much. She says that although she used to have a great deal of energy, she doesn't anymore. Another common theme. Her days are spent anticipating the needs of others as her job demands. When she was a small girl, if there was going to be an event in the school, she would get sick. That stress, that anticipation leading up to that event probably got her ill. I know all about that. I feel like I've had that, like the nerves, the anxiety. That is, that she was very sensitive to unusual circumstances in the form of too much stimuli. I'll go, quote, I'll go till I can't go anymore, she says, as she speaks of pushing herself beyond her limits. She had been having anxiety attacks and chest pain due to stress, and she is very subject to colds and flu, possibly caused by the air quality in a plane. Probably the plane, because honestly, I can't tell you the last time I got sick. I don't get sick very often because I feel like my immune system's in overdrive, so it just immediately will get rid of whatever. I don't know. I think it's like new foreign body, get rid of it because I'm already in that mode. My body's in attack mode as it is. So she says, sorry, I lost my place here. All right. Candace takes many vitamins and other supplements and visits a naturopath. In addition, she has massages. Like many of the women, she takes echinacea regularly to help build up her immune system. Her acute attacks of fibromyalgia are becoming more and more debilitating. That is Candace. I want to make a mention that just about every single woman has said that they've taken vitamins or supplements or something. I have a pill thing next to me here. I'm embarrassed to show it to you. It's got 2 weeks, or no, I'm sorry, it is a week, but it has 2 portions. It's got like a Sunday AM and a Sunday PM because I take so many gosh darn pills. So, I have to fill that once a week. So otherwise I'd be getting my pills out forever every morning. So, yeah, vitamins, supplements. With fibromyalgia, it's very common that uh, you might be anemic. I also am anemic unless I take an iron supplement. I have low vitamin D. I have to take a vitamin D supplement. Like, I have to have these things. I've been ordered by the doctor to do these things because my body just doesn't produce enough of it. My body doesn't get enough of it. So, and it's very common to have a deficiency, some kind of deficiency or another. When you have fibromyalgia and other autoimmune diseases, you might have some sort of mineral deficiency or vitamin deficiency. And finally, we're going to read through Barbara's little testimony here. Barbara is the author of the book. She had one of the participants interview her. So here it is. When I asked Amy, one of the other participants, to interview me for my book, I was 60 years old. I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I have retired as a university professor. I live with my spouse, also a retired professor. Our children are grown and have left home. I believe it was preordained that I would develop fibromyalgia as I am the child of a highly sensitive mother. So another highly sensitive person comes into play. I guess HSP may have something to do with fibromyalgia, potentially. There seems to be a correlation. Raised in Montreal, I lived in an apartment on the busiest street of that city. During my childhood, terrifyingly rigid nuns, loud city traffic, and the polio scare fed into my sensitivities. I would hyperventilate at night and faint often and feared that I would die and go to hell. Adult years were also difficult. At age 16, I was in nurses training when students were used as a source of free labor. I was taught that I had a duty to care for others without thought to my own needs. Student nursing days consisted of too much responsibility. As I did not train in a hospital where there was a medical school, student nurses were assigned medical student responsibilities. At the end of the 3 years, I regularly experienced panic and anxiety attacks. So, all that stress, too much pressure on her job, and anxiety and panic attacks. Been there, done that. I married young and had 3 children by cesarean section after my first C section. I could not walk for 4 weeks without severe pain. This was my first attack of fibromyalgia, but I was not diagnosed at that time. It would be 36 years later before I was told officially that I had fibromyalgia. I began university at 32. I later divorced and became a single mother of 3, experienced several months of being stalked, and eventually remarried a widower with 2 teenage children. By then, my own children were teenagers. I pushed myself through a professional career working in a stressful university environment. This all served to reinforce my HSP tendencies. I do not handle conflict very well in my professional career. I avoided I avoided it as much as possible, but would suffer excruciating pain as a result. Fibromyalgia attacks and chronic pain and fatigue were part of my everyday life. Every day. Doesn't stop. Since age 45, when I began to process of self-reflection, I have explored my own tendencies as a hardworking, high energy, caring for others first type of woman. Same kind of pattern that she was seeing in all of her other patient or studies, I should say, the other women that she's studying. It has not been an easy task to change my way of being in the world, and the task of never complete. It is the life sorry, I can't read. It is a life challenge. I can say with some degree of certainty, and I have I can say with some degree of certainty that I have fibromyalgia because I was an HSP. I now I can most of the time understand, if not control, the demon. I worked full time until retirement, and now I enjoy our small grandchildren. I rarely have anxiety attacks, and while the pain and fatigue are always present, they do not always overwhelm me as they once did. I do, though, have sleep disturbances and many physical inadequacies due mostly to the stiffness that accompanies fibromyalgia. Pain is always present. I will never recover completely from an easily aroused nervous system that has been overstimulated throughout my entire life. I totally relate to that. I have done many things to search for relief of my symptoms. Most treatments have cost a great deal of money, but some are free. In the past, I have taken homeopathic medicine and, for sleep, amitriptyline, neither of which I continued for very long. I have regular massages and take several vitamins and supplements to boost my immune system. I must exercise gently or I suffer the next day. When not too vigorous, yoga has helped somewhat in the past. I have learned the techniques of freeze frame, which I will describe fully in other chapters. Above all, I am privileged to have had an income which helped to pay for complementary therapies, although most have not been very successful. Chiropractors and massage therapists have helped greatly, but the effects are not as long lasting as I would have hoped. Nonetheless, they are effective and would have been more so had I begun these treatments at an earlier age. Acupuncture has also not been very helpful. I have found that gently walking in a pool is very beneficial for me, as is walking in general. And that is where I leave you for Miss Barbara Ketty's um, book. But we might come back and revisit it. I like those stories, and I think I didn't even read them all. So there's other stories and other things in here that we could talk about if this is something that interests you, or if you're also experiencing chronic pain. And if you think you have fibromyalgia, this is a good book just to see, like, hey, am I the only one going through this, or what's you know I don't feel so alone when I read this. That's how I felt. Anyways, all right, so the next book that I want to read, speaking of how we've talked about, it could be psychologically related, that whole highly sensitive person, if you are an HSP, that could affect whether you develop fibromyalgia in the future, perhaps. Um, so and everybody says that there's a mind body connection, right? Or a lot of them did say that. So to bring that back around, the next book that we're going to read, we're just going to read a little bit from this one, is called Energy Healing for Trauma, Stress, and Chronic Illness by Cindy Daly. I'll show you the cover. It looks like a textbook. It's huge, right? So, but it's got really great information. And it almost reads like a textbook in some places. Like, it almost reads just like a textbook. All right. So I'm going to read from you chapter 1. This is Maureen. Maureen was a 60-year-old high school teacher suffering with constant fatigue, aches and pains, arrhythmia, which is an erratic heartbeat, lung infections, depression, anxiety, and uncontrollable moods. By the time she came to me, she had already been to dozens of medical doctors. Their diagnoses included an autoimmune disorder, hormonal imbalances, and idiopathic pain, which basically means pain we don't know the cause of. That's basically fibromyalgia too. Her holistic practitioners had suggested she had Lyme disease, leaky gut syndrome, past life challenges, mold infections, and more. The treatments she'd tried, keep in mind, this is more of like a spiritual healing book. Um, so this is to this book talks in great deal about like your energetic body and how to heal your energetic body and your energy. You store energy in your body. You can store negative energy from traumatic situations. Is basically what this book is about. And so that's what where she's going to dive into a little bit here. So the treatments that that she tried included a mild form of chemotherapy, cognitive therapy, vitamin supplements, and hypnosis. I could tell that lying deep inside Maureen were problematic energies that had never been addressed and cleared. In fact, there was an aspect of Maureen's self that that was locked away, trapped in these energies, unable to become free and healthy. It wasn't hard to identify the events that put these energies in place. Over a few months in her childhood, Maureen had undergone one catastrophe after another. A tornado had wiped out her family's farm. Soon after, her father had died from a heart attack. Her mother then developed a serious mold infection in her lungs and began losing control of her emotions, often yelling at the kids. Maureen was still experiencing the suffering she'd been through during that horrific period of her childhood because the energies associated with those events were still present and active, not just in her physical body, but also in her energy body, her energetic body. What do I mean by energies? In this chapter, I'll provide you a simple snapshot of energy and trauma to help you for the detailed information for the rest of the book. So basically, I'm just going to read you what she says about that, about energy and trauma being stored in the body. Why all challenges are energy based. Energy is information that moves and it compromises absolutely everything, including both the tangible and intangible aspects of ourselves. Energy underlies every life disruptor and resulting hardship. So everything that happens into your life is energy: physical, psychological, and spiritual. It also underlies every good thing in life and the resulting joy and peace: physical, psychological, and spiritual. This means that powerful changes can occur if we work on an energetic level to fix them. To understand how, you first need to know that there are two types of energy: physical and subtle. Most healing processes, such as the use of prescription medicine, specific diets, physical therapies, simple cognitive processes, and even the old adage, time heals all wounds, are based on physical energy. So everything that you've ever learned, pretty much, to heal is physical. The physical universe certainly counts when we're working towards alleviating our adversities. In fact, there are biological reasons why our body requires but also resists healing, and there are physical energy modalities that support healing. The key to freedom, however, often lies in the other energetic domain, that of the subtle energy. Subtle energies, also called psychic, intuitive, quantum energies, are inseparable from the material self. So that is you. You are those energies as well. But it's important to note, remember, some of those women said they were psychic or had deja vu or could predict what was going to happen in the room before it happened. Yeah, maybe, maybe they were more in tune with their subtle energies. So, what are subtle energies? Um, They aren't just some mystical phenomena that float around haphazardly. They actually underpin and organize physical reality, including your physical body. I propose that very specific subtle energies are the main causes of chronic illness and other intractable challenges. During a crisis, we're hit with a type of subtle energy called forces. Any of the six vital forces: environmental, missing, modern, physical, psychological, and spiritual, can create problems during the crisis itself, but it's the stress response set off by the forces that can eventually lead to chronic illness and other lingering hardships. So every energy is a force on your body physically, but um, I totally lost my train of thought, what I was saying. Oh, so everything is a force on you, but it's the stress response. It's the way you respond to that force that then becomes um the way in which you respond. Do you respond in a normal way? Do you respond in an overprotective way? Do you never maybe you develop a fear from whatever that is and you never explore it. So all those things can then radiate in your subtle energies. As we continue to be afflicted by the original forces, those forces trigger mechanisms within us that surround the wounded self, the aspect of our psyche most afflicted by the traumatic event in the bubble of shock. Unless this wounded self is freed from the shock bubble, it will continue to suffer in darkness, triggering new energetic responses that cause even more damage. So, one then snowballs into another response, and the way that you respond to stressors may be excessive. Maybe, you're not, maybe causing you more stress in the long run. Sorry, it's hard to read and do this at the same time. All right. So, what makes forces destructive or harmful is not the energies themselves, but whether or not they're compatible with our original energetic signature. This is our master energetic code. So, you have your own energy coming into this world, and then all these other energies are put on you, placed on you, forced on you, and it's how you respond in those situations. Our energetic code is what we came into this world with. It's the culmination of everything unique about our mind, body, and soul. This signature determines what external energies will nourish us or harm us, whether they enter during life events through food or other physical substances, or the subtle feelings and thoughts. Whether we're facing a one time crisis or an ongoing challenge, we'll be able to respond to the energies that match our original energetic signature and will react negatively to those that don't. I define trauma as the damage caused by the initial disruptive incompatible force which is delivered from outside of ourselves. Because trauma is inflicted outside to inside, it must be healed the same way. We require help from another person, living being, or even a spiritual guide or the spirit. In part two of the book, I'll give you the plethora of techniques. Okay, we're not going to get into that. Beyond that initial trauma, there is the damage caused by secondary energies or secondary forces. These secondary energies or secondary forces are created from within during our system's physical and energetic response to the initial trauma. So our own energy starts to respond to that trauma and causes a secondary energy or force. If they aren't addressed, they remain stuck in our body and our energy systems, continuing to cause more harm that over time most often manifests as chronic illness or other ongoing challenges. Um, because these secondary energies are self generated and harm us from the inside, they must also be energetically healed from the inside. When I looked at Maureen's conditions from an energetic point of view, I could see that her physical and subtle energy anatomies had been compromised and traumatized by forces that greatly mismatched her original energetic signature. So her energy has been traumatized by forces and secondary forces and just not good. So, because no one had been available to help her grieve and recover from the traumatic childhood events, the aspects of her that had been traumatized and encased within a shock bubble had never been freed. Meanwhile, the original force and its energetic effects had been absorbed into both her body and energy systems, where they lingered, morphed, and began damaging her physical and subtle anatomies from the inside, eventually triggering a chronic illness. Doesn't this make sense? I mean, everything in this world is energy. And so all of this makes complete sense to me. She needed help to heal both outside to inside and inside to inside. Um, I think that's the end of that section. Yeah, that's it. Because then it goes into she does this came out right around COVID, I think, and so she does a whole section on SARS, which I don't want to get into. Not very timely. But here are some things I do want to go through. So she defines trauma as the cause of a challenge, including the challenge of chronic illness. So even chronic illness is trauma. Any type of trauma can produce physical and subtle challenges. Listed here are some of the most common. So I'm going to go through some of these very quickly. Environmental trauma, because she listed out a bunch of those environmental, physical. So here are some examples. Environmental trauma would be natural disasters, cosmic flares, climatic changes. These are things that could be happening in our solar system and we don't even know. And but it's happening to, it's affecting our energetic bodies. Some are human caused. So those were natural. Some are human caused in the environment, like pollution or airborne toxicity, geopollution, sound toxicity, too much sound noise pollution, electromagnetic toxicity, too much electromagnetic fields in the air. Physical trauma, so that's environment. Now we move on to physical traumas. Includes injuries like accidental or deliberate, physical abuse, violence, sexual abuse and violence, pain, primary or secondary pain. So, a primary pain is usually the result of a physical force, and secondary pain involves the aftermath of this challenge, including follow up injuries such as those incurred post surgery or as emotional fallout. So, even just an emotional fallout, having an emotional reaction to something, good or bad, can be a secondary force on you. Microbial infections, a lot of times those get us like a lot of times the women in the women in fibromyalgia book, they had a viral infection before they started showing symptoms. So trauma. I honestly do think that fibromyalgia is trauma based on what we're learning here. All right, so what next? Microbial infections, genetic, could just have genetic disorders that might lead to issues like you might be genetically predisposed to arthritis. Epigenetic, a chemical soup of microbes and ancestral memories that surround the coding gene. So your energy, plus you also have the energy of your ancestors, by the way, in your cells. So all of that combined. So epigenetic changes could cause some forces on your energetic bodies, and disease, so other diseases. Psychological trauma, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, which includes emotional abuse, moral trauma, such as being forced to act against something that's in your value system, being forced to act against your will on something, maybe. Digital abuse could include bullying, manipulation during dating, online dating, and things of that nature. Fast news cycle. So our own media is pounding us with all these negative things and can affect us, even if you don't think it does. Just hearing it starts to affect your psyche and your emotional body as well. Um, Learning issues like attention deficit disorder, autism, uh, somatic body sensitivities, meaning like uh, there's no rhyme or reason, but you have sensitivities in your body for some reason or another. Dyslexia, How is that under learning disabilities? I don't know. Psychological illnesses could be depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, codependency, someone who is codependent on someone else. This includes the four types of codependency, and also additional mental illnesses, including borderline, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and others. Addictions, allergies, substance abuse, behavioral addictions, food addictions, or malnourishment issues, aging, financial problems. So, even aging, just your own body aging, is a force on your body that can cause chronic illness. Relationship problems, financial problems, spiritual and psychic problems, including soul wounds, attachments, energy attacks, absorption of others' energies, hyperpsychism. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but being hyperpsychic is a thing, apparently, and complications of grieving. So, part of really quick, just to wrap up. So, part of the healing process is determining which hardships are foundational traumas and which are challenges growing out of them. Left unaddressed, the energies of both trauma and our system's response to it can cause or contribute to chronic illness. The lines between first level traumas, second level stress responses, and subsequent long term disturbances blur when we're dealing with many psychological learning, addiction, and allergy related problems. So, if you have many of those that I just listed, you're probably screwed like the rest of us, basically, is what that means. So, I hope that gives you a little bit more of an understanding of what fibromyalgia is and not having to feel alone with a chronic illness, and also the fact that chronic illness and disease can potentially be trauma related, and that we hold these energies in our own bodies, our physical and our energetic bodies, because we have chakras, we have energy, we have auras, and all that is affected, can be affected by these forces. So that's what that book is mainly about, and I think she kind of explains it nicely, at least for us to get a brief understanding of what that book's going to be about and how we hold on to stress. So, up next, we are going to do a mini meditation for relieving isolation and chronic illness. So, we're going to be doing a body gratitude meditation. So, stay tuned. Welcome to this short body gratitude meditation, a gentle practice to honor your body even when it hurts. Sit down, find a comfortable position. You can lie down if that's more comfortable. Whatever feels kindest to your body right now. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Bring your attention to your breath, natural and easy. There's no need to change your breathing. Today, we're offering gratitude to this body that carries us through joy, through pain, through everything. Start with your breath. Thank you, lungs, for every inhale and exhale, even when breathing feels difficult. Silently say to yourself, thank you for sustaining me. Now move your awareness to your heart, beating steadily day after day. Thank you for your quiet strength. Now, gently scan your body Noticing areas of pain or tension, but without any judgment. To those places that may feel pain or tension, offer a soft gratitude. Say to those spaces, thank you for signaling what I need. Thank you for teaching me resilience, patience, and self-care. Feel warmth or light surrounding those areas, not to fix, but just to hold you, to cradle you in love and comfort. Thank you, body, for carrying me this far. I honor you. If emotions arise, tears, anger, sadness, just let them be. They're all part of the gratitude, too. Inhale appreciation and exhale kindness towards yourself. Inhale gratitude and exhale kindness. Just continue to breathe normally and ease into your seat. Relax your body and sink into the floor, the chair, whatever it is that you're sitting on. Let it envelop you in love and comfort. You are more than the pain. You are whole. You are worthy. You are loved. Whenever you're ready, take one deep breath. Wiggle your fingers and toes if you'd like. May you carry this gentle gratitude with you all day today and always. Thank you for this practice. Namaste. Welcome to Divine Messages. This is the segment where I read oracle card readings from our spirit guides, inner angels, and the universal light, God, whatever you call it, or them, or whatever it is that you praise. We are getting our messages from higher orders here today. So I'm shuffling. I want you to see that I am shuffling the deck. These are the Sacred Destiny. This is like my favorite deck from Denise Lynn, I believe her name is. Sacred Destiny cards. She also has a Sacred Forest, which I really want, but I don't know. I just haven't gotten to buying them, I guess. All right. So today, what do we, the collective, need to know about connection? So this feeling of isolation, chronic pain, what do we need to know about that feeling of connection to other humans? Well, this is a green path going forward, is what the card says. So it looks like there is a path ahead where healing can take place. Green is often the color, represents the color of healing in oracle cards. So there is a path to healing and to repairing relationships, perhaps when you are feeling isolated. So keep that in mind that there's a clear path. You might not see the end of it. It might be far, it might look like it's far in the distance, but there is a path laid out for you going forward for reconnecting with loved ones, family members, having the less feelings of isolation and more feelings of connection. There's a good, strong, green, healing, robust path ahead of you that can do that. Up next, I want to know how does how is our body asking our bodies, the collective, our body, what does our body need to tell us? What does our body need to tell us? What message does it have for us? What is it asking to be seen or heard? So I have upside down. Well, both of these cards were upside down. I don't know. Maybe I have the deck upside down. I think I do. That would be why. It is a mountain in a nighttime sky in the background, and it's very dark. It's hard to see. So maybe there's some confusion and some uncertainty about what our bodies are trying to tell us. And that's okay. Maybe we don't understand the exact messages that our bodies are telling us, but the fact that they are giving us the message is what we should be grateful for. The fact that our body is reacting in a way that is representing itself in some kind of physical manifestation that you can then address whatever it is emotionally, psychologically, physically, whatever it might be, in order to overcome it. So our bodies might be giving us messages, but in the long run, we do have the wherewithal and the stamina and the strength to meet our goals, to succeed, to reach the highest heights in this lifetime. So, regardless of what your body's saying, regardless of your symptoms, regardless of if it's uncertain, if there's no clarity there as to what is causing your symptoms and all that, at least know that you're not being given something that you can't handle. The mountain ahead, the road ahead, it all looks difficult, but it's not something that you can't overcome. So there is success in this for you. It doesn't have to hold you back. You can still meet your goals. You can still shift gears and make other goals and make your life purposeful. Maybe you can no longer be a nurse. Maybe you can no longer teach at your job. Maybe your career needs to take a total shift. But that's okay because you can handle it. And it might not feel like it now, and your body might be tired and exhausted, but you don't have to do it all at once either. You don't climb a mountain all at once. It's step by step. So everything that your body is doing right now for you or telling you, trying to communicate to you, step by step. And you can only handle one thing at a time. Like I have so many things wrong with my body and I'm going to different doctors and trying to, well, it's like I got my low back and then my tailbone and then my upper, my neck problems and all the things. And it's like you can only deal with one thing at a time. You can't deal with it all at once. So one step at a time, but it is surmountable. You can get through it. And finally, what strength is growing from this invisible journey? What strength are we, the collective, getting from this journey? You know, maybe your whole life has shifted because now you have some chronic illness, but now your life's just going in a different direction. So what is the strength and that we are getting from this journey? Openness, learning to be open to our intuition, to listening to our bodies, listening to our intuition, getting guidance from above, guidance from our angels and the universe. So maybe our lesson and our strength here is that we need to surrender a little bit, which was what last week's episode, or I can't remember because I have so many shows, but whatever it was, last week I had one of my shows was about embracing, oh no, I'm sorry, about surrendering. Yeah, embracing the unknown, surrendering. It was last week's episode of Unscripted. We talked about embrace of surrendering. So maybe this kind of ties into it in that you should be open to surrendering to your circumstances. So if you are like, okay, well, now I can't work and now I can't do this and now blah 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 blah. My abilities are not what they used to be and these are now my circumstances. Well, what can you do? You don't have to continue teaching, but you can maybe do something else. Do maybe advocate for people with chronic illnesses. Do something along those lines. Start a YouTube channel and help people understand what chronic pain means or what your journey has been about. Things of that nature. Use your intuition is basically what this card is saying. Be open to other suggestions, other ideas. You don't have to stick to the same old, same old. If your situation has changed, why are you trying to stick to the same thing? Maybe you need to change some things around in order to meet in the middle, if that makes sense. And I think your intuition and you are being guided by your ancestors and the angels. They are with you. So you're never alone. You never have to do it alone. And you can ask for their guidance and their help at any time. And um, again, listen to your body, openness, intuition. The moon represents intuition. Listen to your body, become intuitive to your body. Sometimes, like might feel like you're getting sick before you're getting sick. You feel those little cues inside your body. Listen to that. Listen to your intuition about your body and your illness, and that will help you. And most importantly, and I want to leave you with this message, advocate for yourself. If something feels off, if something, not off, but just if you're at the doctor, like I said before, I was going to my rheumatologist and it was like we were just doing the same thing at our appointments. And it was like he was listening to me and saying, okay, so it's working. The medicine's making you feel better. Okay, good. Then we'll just keep going along, same protocol, everything. And I'm like, "But no, it's not because I'm still complaining about pain. I'm still complaining about this and blah, 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 blah." And he wasn't listening to like these other symptoms that didn't seem like fibromyalgia to me. So eventually I had to advocate for myself and ask for the tests that I needed to confirm my suspicions. So, and I'm doing that again in this other situation where I think I have POTS now, which is an autonomic dysfunction and makes you lightheaded and dizzy all the time, which I have all the time. And I think it's only gotten worse since my other things have gotten worse, but I think I've had it all my life actually. But never really thought it was that bad until a recent flare up of it. So again, I had to go and advocate for myself, go to the doctor and advocate for this specific thing that I thought it was. And he ruled out all these other things that it wasn't in order to basically say, well, I can't rule out what you think it is, so I'm going to send you to a cardiologist and then they can order the special test and we can figure it out. So advocate for yourself. If something feels wrong with your doctors, if something you're just not getting the right answers that you want, find a new doctor, go seek, a second opinion, or just have a heart to heart with your doctor and be like, listen, doc, I don't think you're listening to me and you're not hearing what I'm saying. The pain isn't going away and now I have all these new symptoms. So, be clearer with your communication and be open to uh, new opportunities that might not have been there before when you were healthy and you took things for granted. Now you might have to shift your life a little bit around in order to sustain the things that you want and your priorities. So I think that was a beautiful reading. Thank you, angels, spirit guides, and the universe for that lovely reading. So up next, we have a little wrap up, and that's it. Thanks for watching. If anything that I said today resonated with you, write a comment below. Let me know. Tell me your personal stories, your medical success stories, or things of that nature, your horror stories that you've had to deal with throughout your chronic pain or chronic illness story, your journey. your invisible pain journey, whatever it is. Let us know in the comments below. And really want this to be a community. So you're not isolated. You don't have to be alone. You can have everyone here to talk to about the chronic issues that you're having and people that understand and are going through it as well. So I hope to see you in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, guys. Bye. Another Friday, another layer peeled. Thank you for witnessing. See you next week. Don't miss it. Another Friday, another layer peeled. Thank you for witnessing. See you next week. Don't miss it.